We'll say this is an episode of SWOP Cast, right? This is Phoenix Calida from SWOP USA, and I am being joined by Alex Andrews from SWOP Behind Bars. And Alex is going to do most of the talking, I think, because Alex is going to tell me all about Joey the Player and what's going on there. I heard y'all are like making like a movie or a documentary, right?
We are making a docuseries, but you know, it's not about Joey the Player. It's about all the things that went wrong for sex workers who were trying to report violence against them. And as we've dug into a lot of the documents on the case, we've discovered that there are so many gaps in not just gaps in service, but gaps in knowledge. And it's terrifying.
So when you say gaps in knowledge, what does that mean?
Well, you know, gaps in knowledge about how the criminal justice system works. Gaps in knowledge about really understanding the fear that is behind going to report to law enforcement, and really what you have to go through when you report. It's kind of horrifying, to be honest with you.
Right.
You know, if you've never reported a crime against yourself, then you know, don't. You know, really think about that before you go do, because it's really terrifying.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I find that sort of like where we're at socially, a lot of people have really been like brought in by sort of like the cop shows, like the propaganda shows, like Law and Order. And it's like, no, actually going to report someone assaulting you or someone doing something to you is not the same as like going to go report to like Olivia Benson, you know, like it's totally not.
It's really not. It's not like reporting to Olivia. Olivia, you know, has some, oh God, I hate to give Olivia any credit, but the character she plays does such great job of, you know, meeting the victim in the lobby of the, you know, SVU unit, where she easily was able to walk into the police department and say, I'd like to report a crime. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Right. When people do go to report, what type of hurdles are they finding or encountering?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, reporting a crime is difficult. They also face legal hurdles. We always recommend that you have an attorney with you when you go to report violence against yourself, because a lot of times when you do that, they end up charging the person who's reporting with a crime, which is problematic for a lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
But that was a real hurdle. That was the thing that people were really experiencing, and not being believed. You know, just simply not being believed. It was incredibly frustrating to not be able to be believed.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that. And I think that goes back to something that we talk about a lot, especially in sex worker spaces, is how, you know, police will use like NHI and people think like we're lying. And it's like, that's a really kind of fucked up thing to lie about. For folks who don't know, NHI means no humans involved, which is something that a lot of police say in cases where sex workers have been assaulted or murdered or robbed or, you know, victimized in some way. And it's like, there really just is so much stigma against sex workers in this society that it is really difficult to report a crime, and even more difficult to be seen as a victim of a crime. Right? Because there's this inherent assumption that like you're a bad person.
You can't rape a sex worker.
Yeah, you can't believe a sex worker, right? You're inherently criminal. There's something wrong with you because you do sex work. And so there really is like a level of stigma that makes it even harder to report and be seen as someone who's capable of being a victim. And I think we like lose that a lot of the times. Because when you say it to the average person, they're like, that sounds ridiculous. There's no way. And you're like, but actually.
And that's exactly what it blows my mind that people don't realize that. You know, that being believed is a whole nother thing, but the stigma against sex workers is horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Horrifying. And the fact that we can't report to law enforcement, literally even law enforcement will say, well, of course you should report. Come on into the office and fill out this form. You know, and it's just not that easy.
Yeah, no, when I think about reporting crimes as a sex worker, it always makes me think of those videos, like the Shut the Fuck Up Friday videos, you know, that always go around.
I haven't seen those, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm going to be going to TikTok here before too long.
Yes, I will send you them. But yeah, it's basically two guys who are brothers, I think, and they're lawyers, and they mostly were doing, I think, representation in cases for people who had marijuana charges. But they had like a little script, and their thing was like, it's Shut the Fuck Up Friday. When you get pulled over, what do? You shut the fuck up, you know?
Oh.
And, yeah. Yeah. And they were like, when the cop says, do you know why I pulled you over? You're like, no. Where were you going? I'm not discussing my day with you. Like, it really was a script, but it does remind me of that, because I think one of the, like, the good things about those videos is that, like, it does remind you that, like, you have to assume that police see you as a criminal, so police assume your criminality. And
Yes.
so, like, it's like, oh, well, why were you there? What were you doing? What do you do for a living? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's like, all of a sudden, you're the one being interrogated, even though something happened to you, you know?
Yeah.
And
The one of our recent clients was arrested in a police sting, and she was taken to jail, and all of this went on. By the time they went to get out of jail, it had been about 2 days before their bond kicked in, and they were going to be released on bond. And when she was released from jail 2 days later on bond, she'd been off of her meds for a couple of days, and she was not feeling a lot of love. And she said some things to the desk clerk when she got out, and they've now charged her with additional charges of terrorism.
terrorism.
Terrorism, yes.
I mean, that seems
Threatening
a
bodily
little
harm
extreme.
to a law enforcement officer is a terrorism charge.
I mean, I also feel like that probably shouldn't be terrorism, but okay.
Yeah, probably it shouldn't be, but apparently whatever she yelled, which I'm not sure what the specifics were, but we're going to go to court on Thursday and find out.
Okay.
Her attorney, she was able to get a good attorney, and
Well, that's good.
and we've been advocating for her as well, and we're really very hopeful that they will throw out this ridiculousness.
Yeah, and I often do wonder about that with folks who get charged. Like, is it, you know, how easy is it for a district attorney or a state's attorney, whatever you have in your state, to just sort of tack on extra charges, you know?
Oh,
as an
no. They
intimidation?
absolutely want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, they will throw another couple of charges on there, especially if they think that they can get something to stick. One of the things that a prosecutor hates more than anything in the world is losing a case, or having a not guilty plea, or having a case dropped. And so a lot of times they will charge them with all kinds of different stuff just in hopes of getting something to stick.
Right.
You know, so that's not unusual at all. That is actually the strategy for prosecutors, and it's really important that people know that going in, because when you say something, well, no, I should be able to get this charge dropped because it wasn't true. No, it's not that simple, because that prosecutor, they've got a little chart going on, and whoever gets the most guilties or whatever may get to run for state attorney, or get a better job, or a better position, or a better salary when they go into private practice. So it's an incredibly competitive environment, and so no, you don't just get your charges dropped. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
They will let you plead down in order to just not lose.
Right, and I feel like that's a part of the criminal justice system that people don't necessarily understand, is that the goal is to prove that there are criminals, right? Because that justifies police funding, it justifies the existence of prosecutors, you know. And
yeah, the existence of everything, really.
Exactly, yeah. And so, like,
we must have crime. It is literally an economy, you know, in the justice system.
Yeah, and I don't think enough people necessarily realize that, you know, because again, like, I know I'm gonna keep referring to Law and Order, but that's because, like, I have a personal, like, hatred of Dick Wolf, the guy who created Law and Order, because he literally said he did it to create prosecutor propaganda, and, like, now here we are, you know. Like,
thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Dick. But, you know, but
yet another thing we can thank you for.
Honestly, though, because I think a lot of people really genuinely don't understand how complex the system is, or how hard to navigate it is. And I think, like, one of the big things is there's this whole sort of, like, assumption that if the police are investigating you, or the feds are investigating you, or the prosecutor is trying to land all these charges, it's because you're like a legitimately bad person. And it's like, no, it could all just be, simple misdemeanors. It could be something as simple as like, I'm a sex worker and a client paid me for a blowjob, and now like you have all these other charges, and people assume that like once you're in the criminal justice system that it's like, because you're like a serial killer, you're a sociopath, or a serial rapist, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's just not the reality of people who are caught up in the system, and I wish that there was more awareness around that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and you're absolutely right. People aren't aware until they experience it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are completely baffled by the fact that it works this way.
Yep.
Literally everyone I've ever known who has gotten involved in the criminal justice system has gone into it thinking, well, this is the law, right? Everybody's going to behave according to their best behavior. No, that is not the case.
No. Yeah, and it's fascinating that you say that, because I was just reading a thing on Blue Sky. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find the post now, because I can never find the post when I'm podcasting live, ever. But it was about how many states allow police to have sex with sex workers as evidence of them being sex workers. And it's like...
As a matter of fact, there are only 4 states in which it is illegal for a police officer to have sex with a person that he is targeting for arrest.
Yes.
4 states.
Yeah. And I think like that's also a thing that people should really understand too, is just how messed up a system is, where you can come in posing as a client, pay for a sexual service, receive the sexual service, and then after you're done, be like, oh, by the way, you're under arrest.
And the fact that that's not frowned upon, shall we say,
right,
is just hysterical to me. I don't understand how that is something that has been allowed to continue for that long.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I think about a lot. Okay, yes, I'm seeing as of right now, I just found the article, 35 states still have it consensual. So I guess we've made some progress.
What do you mean consensual?
Because that police can say that they that a sex worker consented to engaging in sexual consensually engage in having sex with them. Yeah. So,
but do they actually do that?
You know what
I mean? Because they're trying to get victims here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying to get victims, and they're trying to catch those bad clients who are out there doing those horrible things to children.
Right, of course, and that's why they pose as children online, to increase demand for children. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yes, those little fuckers.
Yeah, but no, I really do think that is like an interesting thing when we talk about sex workers' rights and sex workers trying to deal with police and that sort of thing, because it's like because I think we've had a bit of a shift, right? So it used to be sex workers are like immoral sluts, right? Like that was like the talking point for a very long time. And then the language sort of shifted to more like victim-based language, to be like, oh, these are exploited women, or these are prostituted women, or oh, these women are victims, right? And it's like, if that is really your premise and you genuinely believe that women who are in the sex work industry are victims, why are you having sex with them as sex workers? And why are you arresting them? Because if I thought someone was a victim of something, I would probably not arrest them, because I don't think arrest is going to help. I don't think having sex with them is going to help either. What are we doing right now?
Oh, gosh, you're brilliant. You've solved the mystery.
like, what are we doing,
Yeah, I think everything should be good now.
But yeah, so I just,
You made perfect sense out of all of it. It's bananas, isn't it? That this is what we have to go through.
It is, and I just... in my heart, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, because I do still tend to cling to hope, which is arguably foolish, I know. But I really do wish that if people knew what was actually going on behind the scenes, that they would have more sympathy and empathy for sex workers and would be more willing to advocate for sex workers' rights. It's just that they don't know these things are happening. Because when you do tell the average person that, oh yeah, it's perfectly legal for a cop to pose as a client, have sex with you, and then arrest you, and then you have a jail record, and now no one will ever hire you again. Most people will be like, wow, that's a terrible way to go about helping sex workers.
That seems like a bad policy.
But it's like no one knows that it's happening. And it's also just like, the amount of pro law enforcement and police propaganda is wild to me, because how do people not know this? You know? And it's, you know, and I really feel like we do sort of struggle to combat that sort of on a daily basis, really, you know.
On a daily basis, exactly.
Really, it's wild. But
every day.
I feel like I have tangented, and we were supposed to talk about Joey the player.
Yes.
That's what I think we were supposed
And I
to
think
be
that that's kind of where we spun off. And that's one of the really interesting things about the Joey the player case. It's not about Joey the player, Joey Olivio Torres. The real story is about all of the systems that are broken and let people down and didn't allow them to report to law enforcement. I think that's exactly where we were going to, and that's why it was really easy to segue into something else, because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. Can you, for folks who don't know, because I apologize, I'm in on this, you're in on this, we all know what's going on, but for folks who don't know about Joey the player, can you give us
Which is the large majority.
Which is the large majority. Can we get a little recap?
So Joey the Player, it's hashtag Joey the Player was a hashtag that was created to identify a man who was targeting sex workers who were posting on advertising online. He would lure them with promises of huge sums of money, and then when he got there, he would hold them hostage, not pay them, and assault them violently, sometimes for hours. I've heard he would ask for overnights, and people would do that. Well, he did that with people who he brought across state lines.
Right.
And SWOP Behind Bars worked with other activists and other organizations in the community to get as much information out about him as possible, to warn people about them. As you know, we operate the 24-hour community support line.
Yes.
And I was answering the phone one day, and it rang, and I answered it, and it said, "Yeah, I'm with the FBI." I'm like, "Sure you are." You know, that was my
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's do this, FBI guy. And I didn't. You know, he said that he'd seen us posting on Twitter, and I was thinking, okay, they have time to go look at Twitter. But I digress. He proceeded to tell me that they were interested in finding more about the victims of this because this is not the way it's done. Well, they had been trying to reach out to some victims who had tried to contact local law enforcement, and done it in such a way, as law enforcement tends to do, that they were not delicate about it when they were making these phone calls. And they actually informed one girl's mother she wasn't aware that her daughter was a sex worker, and she had been assaulted by Joey the Player.
Oh.
Yes. So that scared them. And so they wanted our assistance in bringing more victims forward. Well, like I just told you on a little earlier, I'm very reluctant to say, yeah, absolutely, let me have my friend who was sexually assaulted come in and talk to you guys there at your FBI office.
Right.
And so we arranged for the attorney that represented Rent Boy to go and during the Rent Boy raid, which is another episode that we could probably do another docuseries on.
We probably should.
We probably should. I think that it's time.
Yeah. Also, as a side note, there's like multiple blog posts in the SWOP drive about that.
About the Rent Boy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Gosh, we should put some of those up.
We should.
We should. I'm with you on that. So anyway, so Joey the Player was this attorney agreed to represent victims. So we told the community, and we posted about it, and we wrote letters, and we sent emails, and we replied to ads, and we did all kinds of work around trying to notify people that they could contact this attorney if they wanted to report the violence that they had experienced at the hands of Joey. They were seeking to prosecute him. I guess it's my understanding they had almost 30 people come in and report to the attorney, but some of them didn't want to go to the FBI.
Right.
Some of them just weren't prepared to go through all of that. And so They ended up charging him with 6 counts because they had 6 victims
Okay.
that were willing to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the victims ended up dropping out a little bit later on. We're not really sure why. There's a lot that's going to come to light, I think, about this that's going to be really interesting. But he was actively threatening people, calling and threatening victims from jail.
Yeah,
So-
I remember we had looked at his website. Like, did you see his website?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing.
Yeah. It's some crazy pants stuff, isn't it?
It was wild. It was fucking wild. Yeah, we're just his whole like sort of like persecution complex, I'll say, where he's like, the prosecutor's not fair, the judge isn't fair, everyone's against me. Like, I was like, okay, this is really weird.
Okay, settle down. Yeah. Is it really that bad? Actually, I mean, that's the way he behaved all throughout the case. He was absolutely incensed that he had been charged with a crime against sex workers.
Right.
And he vacillated between going back and forth between, I'm not guilty because I didn't do it, but they were just sex workers, to later on saying they were too traumatized to know whether or not they'd been, they were just prostitutes. That was what he kept saying. They're just prostitutes.
Yeah. And yeah, that's something
he committed no crime.
Yeah.
The only thing that he didn't do that he didn't do right, and he wishes that he would have done, is pay them.
Yeah, and that's something that like I've really been trying to like focus on with SWOP, and especially like December 17th, because for listeners who may not know, right, December 17th is the International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, and one of our big focuses is specifically the victims of the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, because one of the things Gary Ridgway openly said is like, I went after sex workers because I knew no one would care, right? And so like, he's obviously not the first person to say that, the last one to say that, unfortunately, the only one to say that. But that really is something that we're trying to really talk about when we talk about like breaking down stigma against sex workers, because so many people have this idea that like, it's okay to hurt someone if they're a sex worker. Like it doesn't count, like technically, Yeah. And that's sort of like where we are. And like, it's very frustrating and very, disheartening in a lot of ways, because sex workers are people. Like, it shouldn't be radical to say
gosh, you said exactly the right thing. Yes, sex workers are people, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and they deserve to be believed, and they deserve to be heard, and they deserve their goddamn day in court.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. That's why like one of the things that I love about the concept of actually getting decrim is that sex workers will be able to take their victimizers to court, right? Because I keep looking at New Zealand, right? Because if folks don't know, New Zealand has a decrim model. And one of the things that I don't want to say like I love it because it sounds weird, because it is about sex workers, sometimes being assaulted or harassed. But the point is that they can go to court and be like, hey, this person is harassing me. Hey, this person assaulted me. And they can actually win. Like, that's amazing,
Yeah.
I love
that.
I would love to have that here. I would love that.
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, that would be fantastic. I was actually just reading a case where someone got convicted of sexual assault because he stealthed a sex worker, which, he took the condom off during the session, which was obviously not part of the negotiations. And she won because she sued him and she won. And I'm like, that's a
badass motherfucker right there.
Yeah, like that's how it should be, actually. Like, you should be able to sue someone for doing that to you. So I would love that. But I keep getting sidetracked. But so, y'all are doing a docuseries. What is that gonna look like? I'm so excited for it.
It's been a lot, one of the reasons that we want to tell the story and we want to make sure that it's told by sex workers is because we really feel like it's important to demonstrate, to give the general public, the anti-trafficking community, a real picture on what it looks like to have these really harmful policies over the long term, and what it's done to the structures that are supposed to protect us. And we're talking societal structures, the criminal justice system, therapeutic care, trying to provide services to people who have been traumatized by arrest is it's very difficult to do, because then the system would have to say, oh, you know what? Yeah, that is a pretty awful thing we did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you just can't get governments to do that. We know in the case of Nicole Gilliland, the nursing student who was kicked out of nursing school because the professor found out that she had been a porn star 10 years previously.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that, well, unclassy women shouldn't be nurses, and she sued the state of Oregon and won $1.4 million. But then the state turned around and refiled, and they ended up reducing that amount greatly because the state had to pay for it. So she never did get the 1.4 million.
That's awful, actually.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the pain and suffering on what she went through,
right?
And that is what going through any kind of criminal justice intervention is going in, is pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is additional pain and suffering to live your life as a sex worker in this criminalized environment, and not have any access to the resources for the things that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not acceptable to me.
Right. No, I 100% agree. 100%. So, as we talk about these things, what, because I know you do amazing work with SWOP Behind Bars, what are some of your workarounds, if you will, right? Because if someone has been abused and they are a sex worker, what can they do?
Well, yeah. There are workarounds, but it's not a societal or an institutional workaround. Right. It is the workaround of an individual who sees the situation and says, I can't fix that, but I can make this adjustment on my end. And that's what we find is transformational in a person's life. And I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. A young lady who had come to us after having been in prison for a year and a half, I think. She'd been charged as a conspiracy to traffic a minor when she was barely a kid herself. She was barely 18 herself. Oh. And the other girl was 17 years old by a 35-year-old man who had shot her 3 times.
Oh my God.
She went to, I'm not done. It gets better. They went to she went to the hospital after having been shot, and 3 months pregnant with his child. She went to the hospital, and 3 months later, they came to arrest her because that's when they found out that she was working as a sex worker in Anchorage. So she came to us, and they had charged her with this, and she had to register as a sex offender for 15 years.
I fucking knew it
barely
was gonna be
25
Alaska.
Years old.
I fucking knew it was going to be Alaska.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It could also be Florida or Georgia, though. They're equally shitty. But she had to register as a sex offender. As a result, she had been trafficked most of her life. Mm-hmm. As a juvenile, as a teenager, she had been trafficked, abused, assaulted, really mistreated in many, many different ways. And the state knew this the entire time.
Right.
And because she had to register as a sex offender, she was not able to get into any program in the United States that was able to provide trauma-informed victim services for a trafficking survivor who had to register as a sex offender. Not a single program would take her. I am not happy with the fact that I do work in the anti-trafficking space a lot. Mm-hmm. And I do that because I have survivors of trafficking that also identify as current or former sex workers. Mm-hmm. Because it is not a myopic single vision world.
Absolutely.
And the nuance and the misunderstandings and the myths and the misconceptions and all of those things, those are all the result of misinformation. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's just misinformation.
Absolutely.
And the anti-trafficking industry, the rescue industry, has largely been responsible for all of a sudden this incredible call to arms that is resulting in the arrest of hundreds of sex workers every year. But not only them, they think that by going after their clients, they're improving the lives of these workers, when in reality, they're breaking up families and making the young children of these clients grow up without fathers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it reminds me of like back in the day. I had taken a criminal justice studies class, and one of the things at the time was it was considered new legislation. Yes, that's how old I am. But it was about the idea that there should be a mandatory arrest if there was a call for domestic violence at a household. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And it reminds me very much of that. And like on the surface, it looks good because
hey, if somebody's going to jail, they're getting split up. It's not going to happen anymore tonight.
Exactly. Right? It was that.
Was anybody saved?
And it was that, but it was also this idea that like, well, odds are if it's a heterosexual couple that the man is the one being the abuser, the woman is the one being abused, and she won't be able to report him or is scared to report him or, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we just need to take him away. And so it was seen as a win. And then it turned out that a bunch of these women ended up getting evicted because even though they were in abusive relationships, the men they were in abusive relationships with were oftentimes the breadwinner or at least a significant contributor to the household. And it's like, now we can't pay rent. So now we're evicted because he's in jail. Or the nuisance call thing, right? Where if a 911 is called enough times on your house, well, on your apartment, right? Because these are people who rent, not people who own homes. But if 911 is called enough times, that your landlord can just evict you because you're now a nuisance, right? And so it's like, I get that you want to see an abuser put in jail, but how does this help the abused person and the children?
And by capturing all of these criminal individuals, mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Are we really making it safer?
Right.
No, we really aren't.
We really aren't.
And I think that that's the question that the anti-trafficking industry has to answer at some point. And I believe that they're starting to be called into question for some of their behaviors. We've seen a lot happen through the Our Rescue. Mm-hmm. You know, we've seen what a sham mm-hmm. it is for these organizations to claim that they're rescuing people from trafficking when what they're really doing is just absorbing a portion of the criminal justice system.
Yes. And I think it's also hopefully becoming more of a public conversation. But we have things like, like Operation Underground Railroad with Tim Ballard and them, right? Mm-hmm. So many of these anti-trafficking organizations it's turning out that they're just scam artists trying to make money, or they are actually kind of trafficking people themselves.
Yes. And it's not that uncommon. I think it was just 2019. We were at an anti-trafficking conference in Ohio, and we noticed that one of the vendors in the vendor hall was selling items that were made by survivors. Oh. And so we went up to them and we asked them, they said, "Are you paying the survivors for the labor that they're doing for that?" Mm-hmm. Well, they get to stay there for free.
So no. That's like prison, allegedly. You get to stay there for free. You have to do work that you're paid pennies for, but you get to stay there for free. Yeah.
Yeah. It's think of it like vacation. Just look at it like you're going on a very isolated vacation.
A very isolated vacation without plumbing, good food, or hospitality. Once you get past all that, it's just
no
like
room service. No room service. No. Some room service.
It's really the way that people really don't understand that this is the reality of the thing. What you were talking about with selling items made by survivors, this was a big thing in the global South specifically. Like, I'm old. I remember Somali Mom.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, Gay Dalton is one of my dearest, oldest friends. Mm-hmm. And she was horrifically abused by the systems in Ireland. Mm-hmm. So this is not just a United States crisis, even though that's where SWOP Behind Bars primarily operates. This is a global issue. Mm-hmm. This is a global issue. And the good part about that is we have a global solution. And that is the model of New Zealand.
Yes.
Where it is decriminalized. They also have in their system of regulation, they also have a licensed opportunity where people can become licensed as a brothel mm-hmm. and work in a licensed environment and offer all the benefits that go along with that. So they not only do they have decriminalization, so there's no prosecution of this quote unquote activity.
Right.
or crime.
Right.
There, the police will assist a sex worker who hasn't been paid or who has been harmed.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of that, sex workers aren't afraid of police.
Right.
Now, it didn't happen overnight.
Of course.
It took about a decade, but you can ask any sex worker who is currently working in New Zealand now, and they just don't get why we're having such an issue.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. They're just like, this makes total sense. Why are you guys have such a problem with it? I've seen Catherine Healy many times talking about the work that they've done in New Zealand, and you can just see the astonishment in her face when she's talking to some of the folks from Ireland or some of the folks from the UK and the folks in the United States. We sound batshit.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is like really, I mean, obviously for me, sex workers' rights is like sort of the cornerstone of it, but I wish more Americans understood that our system is based on being punitive and based on punishment, and it's never based about like rehabilitation or making things better or improving society. It's always about like, how can I punish you?
It never has been.
Right.
The prison population, the people that we keep incarcerated on, are the ones that we do medical tests on, or the ones that we do that do forced labor that nobody else wants to do.
Yes.
They're the ones making the license plates in some cases. In some cases, they're the ones making your office furniture, your clothes in a lot of cases. Prison is an industry. And that is something that is incredibly important for people to understand. It's a business. It's a full-on capitalist business.
Americans don't seem to understand that our entire criminal justice system is based on the idea of being punitive and being a punishment, as opposed to actually rehabilitating people or trying to make society safer in general.
Well, a Department of Justice investigator told me one time, when I was trying to explain the nuances of adult consensual sex work and sex trafficking to them, and this is probably back in 2017, which I had less vocabulary on it than I do now. But he said, you just got to understand, the criminal justice system is set up to have a bad guy and a victim.
Yeah.
And those two identities don't intersect.
Right.
In the criminal justice system. We know they do in real life.
Exactly.
But in the criminal justice system, they do not exist.
Right.
And so the way that our criminal justice system is set up is set up to have a bad guy.
Right.
And we got to have a bad guy.
Yeah, no, I
somebody
mean,
somebody has to pay or something like that.
No, I mean, that totally makes sense. And like, you see it, and the way coverage is like the Crystal Kaiser case, like that's,
and a great example.
Yeah. Like,
and there's another much less well-known case in Alabama that is almost the same exact thing. A young lady who has documented mental health issues in the past, documented and certified, and you can look them up, disabilities, is in jail charged with trafficking a minor, when she had been sent across state lines from Georgia by a dude, and I shit you not, who was in jail for trafficking.
Yeah, that actually.
And she is now sitting in jail and has been for almost a year. And we've been advocating with her public defender and the prosecutor's office to identify her as a victim of trafficking.
Yeah. And
So that if whatever she ends up pleading down to, they will send her to a facility that will offer some trauma-informed rehabilitation services. And there is one in Virginia
okay,
that does that. And they
yeah,
do a pretty damn good job for a prison. I mean,
yeah, for a
I
prison,
have to
yeah.
give it relative.
No, I get it. But yeah, I think that really is a thing. And I think, well, I'll say for Crystal Kaiser, for folks who don't know, Crystal Kaiser was a black girl, and I'm going to say girl because she was a teenager, and, black children should be allowed to have their youth, for fuck's sake. But Crystal Kaiser was a black girl who ended up shooting a guy who essentially was trafficking her. And by definition, if you're under 18, it's trafficking. Like, that's just, it just is. And one of the things is that the guy who she shot his name was, I think, Randall Volar, if I recall. He was under investigation for essentially making, I hate saying child porn, but I know that's the term most people are aware of, but child sexual abuse material is actually the appropriate term, because pornography implies consent, and it was not consensual. But he was making child sexual abuse materials in his basement, where he was basically just filming himself raping black teenage girls, and she shot him, and she's in prison because she's the bad guy, I guess.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And so when you say there has to be a good guy, there has to be a bad guy, and it's like, and one of the things that sticks with me, there's so many things that stick with me about this case, but one of the things was when she got convicted, the judge encouraged her to apologize to his parents. What? I'm sorry that you raised a fucking rapist. What the fuck do you want from me? I'm sorry, I'm being rude, but what?
Oh no, you're fine.
He's out here filming himself raping children, and you want me to apologize to him? I can't even imagine what it's like for her.
No.
To have to deal with this, and now she's in prison because, and I think it's also this sort of false dichotomy that we have in our collective consciousness, where everyone is like, oh, I'll kill a pedophile, I'll kill a rapist, I don't deal with that, you know what I'm saying? And then when she actually did kill her rapist, y'all put her in prison.
Yeah.
So,
well, the rapist will get killed in prison. So I guess,
Yeah, if you ever make it there. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, the number of women who are incarcerated for killing or assaulting their abusive partners is astronomical.
Absolutely.
More than 70% of our membership base reports experiencing some type of intimate partner, gender-based, or domestic violence.
Yes.
Long before they were charged with any crime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know
70%.
No,
that's a lot.
I get it. And even some of the cases are so ridiculous. I remember there's a case of a woman in Illinois, a black woman, and it's been years since I looked at it, and she's actually probably still locked up. But her boyfriend was abusing her child, and she had seen, bruises and suspected something was wrong. So she kept taking her child to the doctor, and the doctors told her she was being paranoid and nothing was wrong. So she dismissed her concerns that the child was being abused. And then when he killed the child, she got sentenced as an accomplice and got a life sentence. And it's but she did everything right. She was concerned. She went to professionals and was like, hey, I think something's wrong. They told her it's all in your head. And how is she an accomplice when, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
It was so evident that she was trying. It's just so frustrating that she's in prison right now, but that really is the reality. And I'm gonna go back and watch, it was, do you know that show Deadly, I think it was Deadly Women?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch it, for one clip. I'm gonna watch the whole thing until I find this one clip. But it was the, I think her name is Candace something. She was the, the forensic psychologist on the show. For folks who don't know, it was kind of a reality true crime type of show where they would do case studies of women who killed people. And they had an FBI profiler. Yeah. They had an FBI profiler. And one of the things she said, I don't think she was supposed to say it, and I don't think it was supposed to make it past editing, but one of the things she said was most women who are imprisoned for murder are actually not that violent. they only have like one specific target in mind, and they got that one person. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's kind of how it really is.
That's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is. Alexa, turn the downstairs off.
But yes, I feel like I have segued too far yet again. I am so good at segueing. That's like...
so am I. I will go down any rabbit hole that you show me.
I love a rabbit hole. I love a good rabbit hole. But yeah, I really do wish more people were more informed about how the prison system works, how the criminal justice system works, you know, how all these things intertwine with each other, and how, you know, they intertwine with concepts like capitalism and racism and misogyny and, you know, structural inequality. And it's like folks don't grasp how all these things are connected, and that's very frustrating to me because we can't really make progress until that's understood. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, are we hoping to make progress?
I would love to.
That's the overarching goal. Yeah, you know, I mean, we'd like to shift the conversation. We'd like to shift the conversation from it being about is this or is this not a crime to, you know, can we not just leave these people alone?
Right, exactly.
You know,
because I think
who is if we serve our society better, just as a general society, we're going to have less crime because the community won't put up with it.
Right, exactly. And I feel like a lot of communities are sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place because if there is violence happening in the community, you're hesitant to report it because you can't trust police.
No, you can't trust police.
And so it's like, so then what do you do? You know, like...
Yes.
And so we're
you know, more and more 911 systems are now trying to find out whether or not it is a mental health emergency, because they are finding that it does a person who is experiencing a mental health break absolutely no good to see police come to their door.
Absolutely, yeah.
They do not feel safer.
Right.
Why is that? It's because our system is broken.
Oh, well, yes. I was going to say because cops keep shooting people, but also that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it would be nice if they would quit doing that too.
That would be very helpful. But yeah, yes. No, that is a thing where, again, like our society is so stuck in this idea that, well, as you said, there has to be a good guy, there has to be a bad guy. There is no nuanced guy. You know, there is no nuanced character.
There is. Here is a guy who presents as not exactly what they look like.
And it's terrible, honestly. And like, I really
and it's not working out for society as a whole.
Absolutely
you know,
not.
We're not becoming a better society. We're not, you know, we're not becoming the greatest nation on the earth or anything like that because we're so rooted in this punitive system. You know, we're really married to it. And that's, again, and, you know, I'm going to segue back into one of the reasons why I'm here today is to talk about Joey the Player. Yes. That's one of the reasons why we want to do this documentary. We feel like it's really important to tell the whole story and really show and really demonstrate how this specific case really shows that violence against women is something that is not taken really seriously in our society. And it's violence against all women. One of the things that, you know, we're working to uncover with the docuseries is the propensity for violence that this person had, because they were so prolific in our own sex worker community. It seems kind of crazy to me that someone could be all of a sudden just become, you know, that kind of person. You know, and I just didn't believe that. But we do believe that there is a history of violence with some college girls when he was at Rutgers. And we believe that there's some domestic violence that was going on there as well with an intimate partner as well as an ex-wife.
Oh, wow.
He had two young daughters that lived in Illinois at the time of his prosecution. But we've heard that they have moved out of the country.
Okay. I mean, I can kind of understand that, though, honestly. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I absolutely can as well. You know, Jose Torres had a lot of family from El Salvador. And a lot of them lived in the New Jersey area. Okay. And so it'll be really interesting to see what he did a lot of traveling as a businessman. It'll be very interesting for us to kind of revisit the places where he traveled to, and some of that includes El Salvador, where we know that women can come up missing all the time and no one will ever know.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's like a larger part of the conversation, is because I know everyone's like, not all men. Yeah, no, not all men, but pretty much I feel like it's okay to wonder if every man who is accused of assault has multiple victims. Because it never seems like these are like a one-off.
I think that's fair. I also wonder sometimes how many women are pushing the wrong button.
Right.
Intentionally. As a newly single person, over the past 2 years, I've been dating some, and boy, I'll tell you what, you just don't know what you're getting out there.
Mm-hmm.
The men in this age group are so damaged from previous relationships.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it's a real wonder. And I'm like very frustrated by the fact that like a lot of sex workers' rights issues are not more so accepted as women's rights issues. Like people only talk about sex workers' issues as being a women's issue.
Feminists, the feminists, yes.
Yeah.
God love them. What are they thinking?
Folks only talk about sex workers' rights issues in terms of like women being victimized sort of thing, but never as like worker rights, never as women's rights. Like sex workers generally tend to be women. Sex workers are also workers. Like there are so many other places for energy to go, but it's always focused on like ban the industry. And it's like that's not practical.
And that's
not gonna happen.
It's more salacious. This is more fun to talk about. This way. This is stigmatized.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of folks don't really understand like the repercussions of that sort of mindset. Is like this is kind of part of where we are. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that I was asked early in the development of SWOP Behind Bars is, were we or were we not a sex worker rights organization? So we're a direct service organization. Mm-hmm. That's who we are. Do we care if you were trading consensually as an adult or if you were trafficked? We do not. Mm-hmm. We do not, because we recognize that there can be multiple levels in these stories. Absolutely. No, and I actually love that very much about SWOP Behind Bars, is that it's like someone actually saying, we'll meet you where you are, but they mean it.
Yeah, and what's really funny is that is the key to it, is meeting someone where they're at, regardless of whatever choice it is they made within the last 24 hours, or the last 3 years, or the last 10 years. Let's talk about what the issue is now. The support line handles a lot of calls every week, and through that support line, we found that it's not always a direct service, like somebody actually physically needing something specific. We're so isolated, we don't have anyone to talk to.
Yep.
Yes. And our support line administrator just listens.
Yes.
I mean, that is probably one of the things about that job that people don't understand, is the amount of capability you have for just simply being quiet and listening.
Yes. And I will just say, like, I myself have called the hotline for that very reason.
I have too.
So, like the hotline is there, it's available. They're like amazing people who are ready and available to talk to you if you need it. So please
877-776-2004.
Please utilize the hotline if you need to. I do feel like we need more spaces like that specifically for sex workers, and I would love to see more of them, which actually, tangenting to SWOP's goals, that is one of the things I would like to do, is to host like a monthly Zoom meeting for maybe 2 or 3 hours where people can just drop in and say hi if they want to, or vent or whatever.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I think that would be one of the greatest things that we could do. I've been going to the Oregon Sex Worker Collective meeting that they have every other Tuesday.
Man, come on, man.
That is sex workers only. I'll have to get them to invite you.
No,
I think that you would really enjoy it.
I haven't gone for like 3 months.
Oh yeah, get back in there. Let's make a plan for both of us to go together.
Okay, we're gonna go together. Also, I went to their December 17th thing. It was actually before December 17th. It was like, because I think December 17th was like a Wednesday.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they had one on like Sunday. I went to their Sunday one. It was actually very nice. It was very lovely.
Yeah. I got to tell you, the events that you've been doing where we do the 24-hour drop-in or the 12-hour drop-in, I love that. I love that space.
I think it's good. I think it's
it's
nice
hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do all day long.
Yeah.
But man, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it. Come and go as you want.
Absolutely. Like just sometimes you just need to know that there's a space available for you, and like that really does so much, especially in the sort of like climate that we're in, because at the rate we're going, Project 2025 is there. I feel like you should know about it now. If you don't yet, you should probably read about it. The stigma against sex workers, this assumption that sex workers are either like broken or inherently immoral, it's just nice to have a space where you can just be. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. It's like,
we just want to be safe. We just want to be healthy. That's what we want. And just like always, we're going to have to provide those things for ourselves.
As always, as it tends to go.
Yes. And you know what? When we do it ourselves, we create spaces that are less harmful. So, so be it.
Yeah. I'm in. Honestly, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally support that. So, yeah, no, I'm very excited to see what's coming in the future. I'm super excited about your docu-series. I really am.
Well, you're probably going to be in it when we get started. We're hoping to start filming in, I believe March is a target date. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be interviewing a lot of people from a lot of different sectors of the movement. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about things like vacatur. We already did a wonderful interview with Melissa Bruto from Decriminalized Sex Work. And, a lot of people don't know about her long time efforts in the movement to write vacatur legislation for states to implement. And she's been terrifically helpful with the legislation in New York that was stopping sex workers from walking on the sidewalk.
Yes.
She was instrumental in helping get rid of ICE out of the criminal court. Because they were arresting people who were there as immigrants. And we've already interviewed her, and we talked about immunity bills and how impactful those can be, because that is kind of a little slide into the space where someone may have more than one identity, whether it be a victim, whether it be someone who's been arrested, someone who's got a criminal justice intervention going, is understanding that if you have immunity if you're reporting violence.
Yeah, and I just a little side note for me, can I do my own little personal victory,
Absolutely,
if you will? So I talked to someone who is a lawmaker in New Hampshire, and they actually proposed a bill where if someone is a sex worker, that they can report a crime and get immunity. So I'm very excited about
love
that.
New Hampshire. Yes. And Melissa Bruto was instrumental in getting that legislation passed. She was every single hearing.
Yes. So I'm very excited about that, by the way. Just hey. But I do feel like it's important to celebrate those type of gains, though, because it really does show that even though the system is shitty, a lot of things are bad. So many things are bad, but there is hope, right?
Yes.
And as we move together as a community, we can make progress. Progress is possible. So, you know what I mean? As bad as things are, I don't want us to get caught up on the idea that it can't get better, because it can, and it has, and it will. Let's just keep moving. So that is my little personal thing.
We don't have any choice but to stay positive about moving forward and to really celebrate when we win. We have to sometimes redefine winning, in order to get some of that. But I do hope that we continue to raise the issues of safety and health over crime and criminality.
Absolutely.
I think if we take our attention away a little bit from the criminal justice intervention and we really look at how can we make our society better, I think that when we say improve the health and well-being of women is going to be a huge impact
Yeah.
on better communities,
Yeah, no,
better, safer, healthier communities, because healthy women create healthy families. Healthy families create healthier communities. Healthy communities create better society. And a better society creates a better world.
yeah, no, I'm absolutely
Cross
there
your
with you.
fingers.
No, I'm absolutely there with you. And I'm really focused on that. And I think one of the things is, I can send you the articles if you like, but I've been reading studies that are being done with sex workers who are voluntarily reporting in other countries, not so much the US, but like one of the leading causes of death is suicide.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And, you know, we've seen
let's-
that over and over again on the December 17th list.
Yes. And it's like, let's
Yeah.
talk about why that is. Like, let's talk about why these folks feel that they don't have resources or they don't have a community they can reach out to. Like,
Yeah.
what is actually going on here, you know?
And what can we do to change that?
Absolutely.
Is it something as simple as a hotline?
It is.
Is it really that
actually.
simple? Is it just as something as simple as funding a hotline
It literally
where people
is.
can call in? Is it something so simple as hosting a weekly 2-hour call where people can just come and go? You know, I mean, what could it hurt to try?
Right. What could, I mean, and I think that's kind of where we're at. It's like, you know what? Let's try everything. Like,
That's right.
like honestly, like I will throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Like,
Good for you.
does this
Good
help?
for
Does
you.
that help? What is helping? What is helping? What do you need? Because we are a community and we have to look out for ourselves, and it does have the larger impact because, you know, I know like we keep saying sex workers and sex workers, but sex workers are so much more than that because sex workers are multifaceted people. Sex workers are
Yes.
mothers and they are partners and they are
Yes,
pillar-
and mothers and partners and aunts
Yes.
and sisters and
people
you know,
in the community.
yeah, and your neighbor.
Yeah.
They should feel safe, and they should have the opportunity to be healthy, regardless of what it is they choose to do to
Yes.
pay for the privilege of living next to you.
Yes, absolutely. And that is like a perfect sentiment of where I'm at right now. So if there's like honestly though, because that is what it is.
I
It's
have
like,
to say, I am really uplifted by our conversation today. You know, ever since the election, I
because
have
this
just
is the
been.
most positive conversation we've had in 3 months.
It is. It is. I think the last time we had a really political conversation was right after that Kamala Harris magically got the Democratic ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by divine, and I just remember saying, "Oh God, can't we just get any other black woman?"
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
any. There's so many to choose from.
I signed the letter. I signed the letter. You know the letter.
Did
you
ya?
signed it too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, we weren't really looking for a sign on so much as we just wanted, I think you, me, and Melody, all of us, we just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, come on, man. You can't just slide in here like that.
Yeah, and I think like
You know?
a big thing that people understand about like sex workers being hesitant to support Kamala is that she had such a history as a prosecutor, and a lot of that was like very anti-sex work rooted policy. And I don't think folks
Yeah.
necessarily realize. And also just like in general, I don't think folks realize how much anti-sex work policy is like anti-woman policy.
Very much so.
How much it's
Very much so.
anti-immigrant policy. It's very pro-racist policy. It's very
Yep.
pro state surveillance policy, right? Because
Yes.
like we have situations where, you know, if folks, I don't know who's listening to this, but if you want me to send you links, I have links for days. Like I can send you links of police arresting women because they assumed during stop and frisk that having condoms was evidence that you're a sex worker because you had condoms. Like having safe sex is proof you're a sex worker now. What the fuck? Right? We have evidence of police specifically targeting trans women on the assumption that they're sex workers. We have evidence that police, you know, are obviously having non-consensual sex, also known as rape, with sex workers who are in their custody. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so, like, there's so many things
This is not new
that-
information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so many
Yeah.
things that being anti-sex work means in terms of state surveillance, in terms of racism, in terms of misogyny, and I just really wish folks could connect those dots a little bit better. You know what I'm saying?
No kidding, no kidding. And that is one of the things that we want to do with the documentary is we want to give really clear understandings of that. We want to show demonstrations of look, here is where it fell apart in the Joey the Player case, but here's where it's fallen apart 100 other times.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
You know, so all of this help that you think that you're doing is not helping. It's harming.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's
Yeah.
also a big thing is there's also this sort of like I would say like a knee-jerk response, right? Where
Very
it's
much
like,
so. But that's the way it always is.
yeah, where it's like, but I don't want to see anybody being trafficked, but I don't want to see people being hurt. And it's like, okay, I understand that, I hear you, and I appreciate you. I have the same goals. Can you talk to someone who's already been doing the work so we can stop reinventing the wheel?
Yes.
You know?
Yes, because your wheel is missing a few spokes.
It's missing a few spokes. Like, honestly.
Yeah. It's missing a few spokes. And, you know, really it comes down to it that sex work is at the center of really any of the social justice movements of our time.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
we are at the center of feminism and racism and you know, all of the healthcare and all of the issues with trafficking. We are at that intersection, and I can guarantee you that regardless of where you stand on a social justice issue, at some point in time in your life, you have stood next to a sex worker and
Yes.
agreed with them on a different subject.
Yes.
So
100%.
there are things where we can come together and we can agree to disagree on the things that we can't, but on the larger issues of safety and health, I think we can all agree that these are things that would be good.
Yes.
And that's my hope. And that is really what is making me go ahead and wake up tomorrow in 2025 and say, all right.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
yeah, well, no,
let's do this.
that's legit. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So, yeah. On that note, because I feel like we ended in a really good place, we're gonna close out.
Before we get into that third glass of wine,
Woo!
and the world gets dark.
And the room gets dark. But no, I feel like we really, you know.
Yeah, we should probably not let the sun set now. Yeah, I do. I feel a lot more positive. Thank you for that.
Of course, I'm always here for
Thank you.
you. I appreciate you so
Yeah.
much. Like, your work is just amazing.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we've gotten to talk more. It really has been a good thing.
I agree. But as we close out, can you tell folks where they can find you, what they can donate to, what they need to know?
Yes, you can go to swopbehindbars.org/donate and have a look at and donate. If you do it before midnight, you're going to get a tax credit for 100% of your donation for 2024. You're also welcome to set up a monthly donation because, you know, every dollar helps. And sometimes $10 a month helps a little, it helps a lot more than, you know, just giving $10 in 1 year. So think about that as well. We'd also love to have you sign up to be a pen pal for one of our incarcerated sex workers. Those forms are posted on the website, and you can fill one of those out. And you will be connected with 2 or 3 incarcerated workers who very
Alex?
much want to talk to you. Yes.
Can you do that again? Your thing was cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. I said we'd love to have it if you signed up to be a pen pal for one of our incarcerated sex workers.
Yes.
You can do that on our website under our programs and services. You'll get 2 or 3 names of people who are incarcerated who have requested to exchange letters and emails with people. They're dying for communication from the outside. It doesn't matter if you can commit to just writing once a month, once a week, once every 3 months. Let them know up front, and they'd love to communicate with you. We have Amazon wish lists for many of our incarcerated sex workers right now, and you can go to our website and look up the Amazon wish list and send a gift directly to an incarcerated sex worker from a list of books that they have requested specifically for them.
I love that. I love all of that. You're so amazing. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate that. If SWOP Behind Bars wasn't somehow a big enough draw for you, well, you can always donate to SWOP USA, right? We
That's
have
right.
SWOPusa.org. Like, hey, look at me! I'm trying to fund my salary.
It takes a lot of us.
It takes a lot of us
to do the work and to do the stuff, that it takes.
Yes.
All of these community based interventions that you're talking about doing are extremely time consuming and extremely expensive.
Yes.
But they're not as expensive as the return on your investment, and that's really what you have to look at when you're giving money to anyone in the sex worker rights space. Is you are giving to someone who not only has the knowledge to make someone's life better, but they have the opportunity on a regular basis, because we are directly connected to sex workers.
Yes.
And so if you want to support the movement, donate to a sex worker rights organization, because if you want to fight trafficking, donate to a sex worker rights organization, because that's what we do. That's what we do. If you want to donate to make sure that women have better health care, donate to a sex worker rights organization, because that's what we're working on. If you want to donate to provide better harm reduction services, better HIV care, better policies and legislation at state and local and national levels, if you want to improve prison policies, if you want to improve reproductive health care, donate to sex worker rights organizations. Literally, because we're working on that.
We're doing it all.
Yeah,
we're doing it.
We're the salt of the earth, as Mistress Matisse says. We are the salt of the earth. It's all up to us. Sex workers save the world.
Yes. But yes, thank you so much, Alex. We have to do this again.
Absolutely. Anytime. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. We're gonna hop off now, but again, we are going into the new year with hope. Right? Hope.
That's right. Hope.
Hope and action. Hope and action.
Drag me across the finish line, Phoenix.
I got you, girl. I got
you. All right. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you. We'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.